Good afternoon and welcome to the November Ordinary Council meeting. Item 1, welcome to country, which I will now hand over to Councillor Greg James to perform.
Thank you, Mayor Sally and my fellow councillors. I pay respects to our ancestors and I acknowledge our elders, both past, present and emerging. Can I also acknowledge the Yorta Nations and all its people whose land we meet on today. So on behalf of the Yorta Elders Council, the 16 family groups and the 8 respected tribes proudly share in the status of traditional owners, I say a very warm welcome to this wonderful land and waterways. Thank you, Mayor Sally.
Councillor James. Item 2, acknowledgement. We, Greater Shepparton City Council, acknowledge the Yorta peoples of the land which now comprises Greater Shepparton. We pay our respect to their tribal elders, we celebrate their continuing culture and we acknowledge the memory of their ancestors. Item 3, privacy notice. This public meeting is being streamed live via our Facebook page and made available for public access on our website along with the official minutes of this meeting. All care is taken to maintain your privacy. However, as a visitor in the public gallery, it is assumed that your consent is given in the event that your image is broadcast to the public. It is also assumed that your consent is given to the use and disclosure of any information that you share at the meeting, including personal or sensitive information, to any person who accesses those recordings or minutes, and we welcome members in the gallery here this afternoon. Item 4, governance principles. Council considers that the recommendations contained in this agenda gives effect to the overarching governance principles stated in section 9.2 of the Local Government Act 2020. These principles are as followed. Councillors, they're listed 1 to 9 on page 6 of the agenda. Item 5, apologies, nil received. I think we're a full house, so there's no apologies. Item 6, declarations of conflict of interest. Councillors, do we have any conflicts regarding any of the items this afternoon?
Yes, Mayor Sally. Can I declare a conflict of interest with regards to 12.5 on the agenda on page 77? That's 7 dwellings, 57 Mason Street, Shepparton.
Thank you, Councillor James. Do we have any other councillors that would like to?
Sally, I'd like to declare a conflict for exactly the same item as Councillor James.
12.5. Thank you, Councillor Adam. Are there any councillors that have any other conflicts regarding any of the items today? No? Very good, councillors. We now move on to item 7, confirmation of minutes of previous meetings. There is a recommendation. Can I please have someone put that forward as a motion? Councillor Dobson.
Thank you, Mayor Sally. I'll move that the minutes of the 17th of October 2023 council meeting, the 24th of October 2023 additional council meeting and the 3rd of November 2023 additional council meeting as circulated be confirmed.
Thank you, Councillor Dobson. Can I have a councillor second that motion, please?
Motion.
Councillor Spinks. All in favour? Motion carried. Item 8, public question time, nil received. Item 9, deputations and petitions, nil received. Councillors, we now go to page 8 of the agenda. Item 10.1, community matching grants 2023/24, round 1. There is a recommendation. Can I please have a councillor put that forward as a motion? Councillor Abdullah.
Thank you, Sally. I would like to move the recommendation on page 8, which says that the council note the successful applicants awarded funding under delegated authority for round 1 of the 2023-20 community matching grants program as follows. And I won't read all the names, but they are all listed here.
Great, thank you, Councillor Bill. Can I have a councillor second that? Councillor Brophy.
Second that motion.
Thank you, Councillor Brophy. Councillor Abdullah, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, very quickly. This motion is mainly for noting, and it is about the outcomes of round 1 of our community matching grants applications. We received 13 applications in this round and 10 were successful. List of the projects that were successful is over here, and as you can see, there's a wide variety of different kinds of community projects, and each of them, I believe, address needs of our community, and it's very pleasing to see that the community is actively using and utilizing these opportunities in terms of applying for these grants. So 13 applications were received. They were assessed by a panel, and the panel has recommended these 10 successful applications. This grant program supports the development and implementation of community activities, and it's part of our council's community development framework. There's a list of criteria which is which includes promotion of building social connections, promoting arts and culture. So again, a lot of variety in that criteria, and community members are encouraged to put forward these applications and run with these projects. I also note that during this initial round, grants ranging from a minimum of $765 to a maximum of $5,000 were approved for all these project funding requests. So really pleasing to see this development, and happy to know and endorse.
Thank you, Councillor Abdullah. Councillor Brophy would like to speak to the motion.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Saleh. Certainly, as pointed out by Councillor Abdullah, the matching grants really cover a wide variety of projects, but they also cover a wide variety of localities throughout our municipality, and that includes Tatura, Talligarupna, Marupna, Talamba, Murchison and Canyambo, just to name a few of them, as well as in Shepparton. Really well covered on these organisations, and really, because they're matching grants, there's a buy-in from these organisations to be part of this particular grant as well. So it's not just money just given out from us, they're contributing towards that as well. An allocation of $50,000 is to be put aside for that. This is round one. It was pretty much taken up by nearly $33,000 worth, so there's only about $17,000 left in the kitty for round two. So it'll be first in best dressed in terms of making sure that they go for the next round. But really, really pleased to see so many projects that are getting up, and they're actual doable projects. One that actually pointed out there was the Tongan community, the Shepparton branch of the Tongan community, and the PA system for their community hall. And I thought, where are they? And I looked it up and I found out where the hall was, and that fantastic. Like, there's some really good things that are happening out in the community, and sometimes you don't realise until such things as these come forward. So well done to all them, the Wood Turners, Shepparton Access, MEAC over in Marupna doing a fantastic job, Primary Care Connect, and the rest of the community.
Thanks, Councillor Brophy. Any councillors like to speak against the motion? Any councillors like to speak for the motion? Councillor Spinks.
Thank you. Yes, I just want to really reiterate, well spoken by my fellow councillors, and I want to read out the social implications that are in the report, because I think that this is, of all the benefits, it is the social benefits of these projects that is the strongest. And the report reads, the recommended projects demonstrate the strength of community connection, engagement and meaningful participation in community life in Greater Shepparton. The volunteer contribution required to deliver these projects is inspiring. The community are taking on bold solutions to challenges in our community. The recommended applications in round one of the community matching grant scheme reaches a broad cross-section of our community, and the positive impacts will have a ripple effect across our community. I think it is a wonderful thing that council offers these grants and that they are so well subscribed, in that they have such capacity to strengthen the social fabric of our many different communities within our larger umbrella of community. It's what makes Greater Shepparton great, and there is just so many different things happening. And I also just want to take a moment to recognise that the unsuccessful applications are always, often if not always, supported by council to look at how their application could be strengthened the next time, and they're encouraged to apply again, or can be assisted to look into other ways or other grants that might be more suited to what they're applying for. So just to community, I do encourage you to look into these grants, not only this one, but all of the grants that we have available, and have a chat with the staff within council, because they're very happy to assist. There is a willingness within council to support these kind of projects, and they are all really wonderful. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Spinks. Are there any other councillors that would like to speak to the motion? Any closing comments, Councillor Abdullah? Councillors, we will now go to the vote. All those in favour? Motion carried and opposed. Councillors, we now go to page 16 of the agenda, item 10.2, Access and Inclusion Grant Program 2023/24. Is a recommendation. Can I please have someone put that forward as a motion?
Thank you, Mayor Saleh. I'd like to move the recommendation on page 16 that the council note the successful applicants awarded funding under Delegated Authority for the Access and Inclusion Grants Program 2023/24 as follows. Written Education Activity Centre, creation of a sensory space for $500. Bumbartha Recreation Reserve, installation of a step ramp, $200. Slade Consulting, extending the narrative, $660. Shepparton Access, construction of a covered parking area, $10,000. Shepparton Heritage Centre, installation of access ramp, $6,084.80 to the total amount awarded $17,440.80.
Yeah.
$17,444.80.
Very good. Thank you, councillor Latson. Councillor that would like to second that motion.
I'll second that motion.
Thank you, councillor Spinks. Councillor Latson, would you like to speak to the motion?
No, thank you, Mayor Sally.
Thank you, councillor Latson. Councillor Spinks, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yeah, this one, I'm so excited. I always love seeing this one come through. It's only something that was created through our council term, and to see it being taken up is really exciting. This is a grant specifically created to increase the access and inclusion across our municipality. This only has one round of funding attached to it, so while it had a total budget of 30,000 available to be allocated, there is only the 17,000 and change being awarded for the 5 recommended projects. So there's still work to do in building community awareness of this grant program and encouraging that take up in lots of different ways. But I want to commend the applications that are there are starting to cover a really wide, there's still room to grow, but it's starting to cover a wide range of different ways that access and inclusion can be incorporated into our organisations and our assets and our infrastructure. And I want to take a moment to also call out the Bunbartha Rec Reserve and the Shepparton Heritage Centre. I feel that the other three applicants are doing wonderful work in this space already, and this just continues to enhance the incredible work that they're doing. But Bunbartha, the Rec Reserve and the Heritage Centre aren't places that would normally have this as their core focus of what they're doing, but it's about, they're obviously actively trying to make their spaces more inclusive and more accessible. And I think that is absolutely worth commending and is a really important point to highlight for anyone else out there who might think, well, this grant's not for me. It absolutely can be. There is many ways that we can increase access and inclusion across our municipality. So absolutely, once again, reach out to council staff if you'd like to even just ask questions. But I think continuing to build awareness of this grant program and strengthening the applications coming through is really important. So well done to the ones that are being awarded or have been awarded, we're just noting, but have been awarded through this round.
Thank you, councillor Spinks. Any councillors like to speak against the motion? Any councillors like to speak for the motion? Councillor Abdullah.
Thank you. Just want to add that, as I note in this report, that there were 2 grant information sessions that were held, that were offered, but one had to be cancelled because there was lack of community interest. So obviously there is room for improvement in terms of stronger promotion and creating awareness around this grant program in the community. And perhaps it's we can all think about creative ideas about how to engage our community and make them aware of this program, but perhaps it's time that we actually reach out to our community proactively and go to the places where they are rather than expecting them to come to us, to our grant information sessions. And I'm sure that our team is continuously working on improving our community engagement, but it's just an idea that we, looking at the outcome of this program, I think we need to be a bit more creative around creating awareness on this program. But overall, very happy with this program. This is, of course, a relatively new program, and I'm sure that many groups in our community and many members of our community can benefit from this program. So well done to the team involved in this grant application.
Thank you, councillor Abdullah. Are there any other councillors that would like to speak to the motion? No, any closing comments, councillor Latson?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Sally. I would like to echo councillor Spinks and councillor Abdullah's comment. No further comment.
Thank you very much. Councillors, we'll now go to the vote. All those in favour? Motion carried on opposed. Councillors, we now go to page 23 of the agenda, item 11.1, October 2023 monthly finance report. There is a recommendation. Can I please have someone put that forward as a motion? Councillor Dobson.
Thank you, Mayor Sally. I'll move that the council note the October 2023 monthly financial report as attached.
Thank you. Can I have someone second that, please? Councillor Brophy.
I second that motion.
Councillor Dobson, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Sally. The year-to-date actual underlying result is a surplus of 5.3 million. Excuse me for a moment. 5.3 million due to the annual rates being generated at the start of the year, and we've often had discussions about that. As the financial year progresses and expenditure is incurred, council is projecting a full year deficit of 22.6 million, and we've got to try and work on that. Another interesting factor is the budget required for the purchase of purple bins has reduced, which is great. We put a certain budget out for that, and the cost of that is to be acclaimed. Just a couple of interesting things that aren't in the agenda, Mayor Sarley, is that the council's projected operating result at the moment is 500,000 unfavourable compared to the Q1 forecast reviews, reflecting increased projected materials and services expenditure. And if you only have to go into the supermarkets of today and see the cost of living right across the board is increased, and the council is not immune to that cost of living increase. The projected full-year operating result is a deficit of 6.3 million, which reflects the continued challenges that council faces in sustainable delivery of services to the community and of value and need. And I think we've just got to keep on every month keeping an eye on it, as does the whole community. The year-to-date actual underlying result is a surplus due to the annual rates, as I said, being generated at the start of the year. This will reduce as the financial year progresses. Since the Q1 adopted forecast review, the capital works projected full year has decreased by $4.57 million due to project cost reductions and project deferrals. Therefore, the capital forecast as a percentage of the adopted budget has reduced to 84%, which is lower than the council planned target. Previous adjustments, the capital works program in the prior financial year also contribute to the result. For example, the October 22 flood sealed roads remuneration reduced by 6.9 million. Payment of rates and charges is close to the prior year's result that they were in the previous month, with 74% outstanding compared to 72. And I note that at the end of this month in November that the second instalment of rates are due. I'll just go down another couple of little items that could be of interest. One that's always interesting me is we've got $41 million investments at the moment, and the good thing about that the majority of that is in what we call A1, which is the top of the class investment houses, and the next biggest is that's A1 plus, then A1. And thirdly, A2, not rated, is the money that we've got in the Golden Murray Credit Union. Also of interest to me and many others would be the council has in that $41 million is $2 million of green term deposits, and I think as much as we can, I think council should be encouraged to keep that up, if not increase that degree. The average rate of interest of investments is 5%, with year-to-date interest earned is $584,000 kilometres, I was going to say. Now, yeah, that's a two-edged sword, isn't it? Because if our interest rates, the money that we earn is going up, of course, the households of Australia, their interest on mortgages is also going up. So whilst it's good for some people, it's not so good for others. So striking that balance is important, but from a council point of view, and I speak purely from a council point of view, it's nice to know that we are getting a bit of a return on interest rates. Recent cash rates have been noted. I think that's probably all I need to speak about at this stage. No need to go into all the nuts and bolts of it, but that ends my report.
Very good, Councillor Dobson. Councillor Brophy, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, Councillor Dobson's left me a little bit to go on with. Just looking at the operating position. Of course, when you first look at the figures, if it wasn't for our financial team behind us to explain some of these things, you would look at it and you'd see the underlying result being a surplus of $51 million. You think, you little ripper, but it's not. It's actually, the annual rates have gone out, and then of course you've got your federal financial assistance grants, which were paid in advance. So there's a lot of accounting that comes into all that to balance it up, and correctly so. The full year deficit is looking at $6.3 million, and that's where we lie in terms of that connected. There's one point I'd make on the capital works, and that has been reduced, and that's fantastic. That's a really good result. it probably means that we've allocated budget for nearly $5 million there that have sort of pretty much come back into the coffers. And if there's some projects that are going to be put off till next year, we could reallocate that. Maybe some of that money could come back onto some of the works if it's not too late for this financial year. But that's an operational matter, and we'll just see how that goes in terms of that. The one thing that I always look at each month as it comes through is our liquidity ratio. That's where you really need to know whether you can pay your debts if everything went belly up. And we're at 138% still with our liquidity ratio, and that's really healthy. So, so far, so good.
Thank you, Councillor Brophy. Are there any councillors that would like to speak against the motion? Any councillors that would like to speak for the motion? Councillor Spinks.
No.
Summer, sorry.
Thank you, Ms. I just wanted to say that although our capital works has been reduced, it is at the expense of some pretty major projects here. We've got the Shepparton Resource Recovery Centre upgrade that's been removed because we're reviewing the scope of the project. So I have asked for a briefing on that because hopefully it'll be rebudgeted and not simply removed. The construction of Cormorant Park in Sevens Creeks Estate has been delayed, and that's been removed also. So even though it looks like a saving, it means that there's less being delivered to the community. And also to note this paragraph, the increase in materials and services is to cover costs related to the Benalla Road upgrade project, which were not accounted for in the budget, increase for Tatura structure plan designs, and expenditure required to undertake the nappy collection service trial. So materials and services does seem volatile at the best of times. We have been trying our best to get that down. However, if that's being used as a reservoir for overspend on other projects, perhaps we need more checks and balances around that, because we shouldn't be spending above our needs, even though it does come up from time to time that it's required. Thank you.
Any other councillors that would like to speak to the motion? No, very good. Closing comments, Councillor Dobson?
No, it's all been very well covered, and I appreciate the fact that councillors are having a say on the financials.
Thank you. Councillors, we will now go to the vote. All those in favour? Motion carried. Councillors, we now go to page 27 of the agenda, item 11.2, Audit and Risk Management Committee. Confirm minutes 9th of August and 6th of September 2023. There is a recommendation. Can I have a councillor put that forward as a motion, please? Councillor Latson.
Thank you, Mayor Sally. I'd like to move the recommendation on page 27 of the agenda, that the council receive and note the minutes of the 9th of August 2023 and 6th of September 2023 Audit and Risk Management Committee meetings as attached.
Thank you, Councillor Latson. Can I have a councillor second that motion, please? Councillor Brophy.
I second that motion.
Thank you. Councillor Latson, would you like to speak to the motion?
No, thank you, Mayor Sally.
Councillor Brophy, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yeah, I'd like to. Thank you very much, Mayor Sally. Just in brief, there was two meetings there held in August the 8th and also on September the 6th. The August the 8th meeting pretty much covered the main points of finance, risk management and insurance, and that was an awful big one to talk about, particularly post-floods, and certainly information, communication and technology. It's the 6th of September, the Audit and Risk Management Committee really covered the financial statements for 2022-23 and also the performance management statement for 22-23 as well.
Thank you, Councillor Brophy. Are there any councillors that would like to speak against the motion? Any councillors that would like to speak for the motion? Councillor Spinks.
Thank you. Yeah, just briefly to say, I encourage for any community members that are reading the agenda, these are worth having a look at. This is it's actually a document that I, as a councillor, genuinely benefit from as well. It's such a knowledgeable, the committee are so knowledgeable and their expertise is greatly appreciated in looking into some of a deep dive, I guess, into some of the risks and issues that are facing council, which provide a lens that, a further lens and other lens that we might not cover. So having all of these different layers of observation, I suppose, are really important to the good management and the health of council as an organisation. And I really appreciate that it exists and that we are able to view these, and they're definitely worth a look. And I just once again want to thank the committee for the work that they do, because it's greatly appreciated and it's really beneficial to us.
Councillor Spinks. Are there any other councillors that would like to speak to the motion? No. Any closing comments, Councillor Latson?
Thanks, Mayor Sally. I'll keep it brief.
I'll just echo Councillor Brophy and Councillor Spinks's comments.
Can't go wrong with that. Councillors, will now go to the vote. All those in favour? Motion carried, unopposed. Councillors, we now go to page 30 of the agenda, item 1.3, community engagement policy. There is a recommendation. Can I please have a councillor put that forward as a motion? Need a mover? Thank you, Councillor Spinks.
I will move the recommendation to a motion that the council adopt the community engagement policy as attached.
Thank you, Councillor Spinks. Can I have a councillor second that motion, please? Councillor Ladson. Councillor Spinks, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yep. So in some ways, we're sort of just re-approving this particular policy. So it was originally moved back in 2021, but because of various things that we're all very aware of that have happened in the meantime, it hasn't come to fruition, and the changes haven't been able to be implemented. So there's been some slight further changes, and there's been the employment of a community engagement officer to undertake this policy, and now we're reapproving it so that it can then be put into action, I suppose. And it's just one of those really essential things. Community engagement, the way that we connect with our community, engage with our community, is essential to everything that we do. We provide the services for community, we serve the needs of community, and we have to be able to actively understand and listen to our community. And doing that doesn't just mean, it means so much more than just a survey or a I won't try and think of examples. It means genuinely connecting and understanding, and understanding the different ways that engagement can look like, and the different levels that you can do it. And very much, we even talked about it with the previous items in going to the community to understand them and not just expecting them to come to us. So I think this community engagement plan will help to support, as Councillor Abdullah was talking about earlier, to support that ongoing improvement in the way that we connect and engage with our community. And I look forward to it now being really put into practice and seeing the results that come of it.
Thank you, Councillor Spinks. Councillor Ladson, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Ms. Ali. One example of community engagement would be community consultation, such as the Shepparton skate park lights down at the Victoria Park Lake. No further comment.
Councillor Ladson. All right, where am I? Councillors, are there anyone that would like to speak against the motion? Is there anyone that would like to speak for the motion? Councillor Brophy.
Thank you, Mayor Sally. I'm just picking up what Councillor Spinks said there, and she's pretty much spot on. The different types of engagement that can be attributed to that is things like deliberate engagement, actually being mindful of how we go out and talk to the different communities. It's not just a tick and flick, and it's not just a survey, because generally you send that out and you get very low response, and you also get very pretty much guarded information that you get back. When you conduct deliberate engagement, when you actually go to the community and expect, instead of them coming to us, you actually get far richer value and far richer information, and that's what this policy is covering as well.
Thank you, Councillor Brophy. Are there any other councillors that would like to speak to the motion? No. Councillor Spinks, any closing comments?
No, thank you.
Councillors, we will now go to the vote. All those in favour? Carried, unopposed. Councillors, we now go to page 33 of the agenda, item 11.4, contracts awarded under delegation October 2023. There is a recommendation. Can I please have a councillor put that forward as a motion? Councillor Abdullah.
Thank you, Mayor Sally. I would like to move the recommendation on page 3 as a motion, and the recommendation that the council, number 1, note no contracts were awarded under delegation pursuant to a formal tender process for the reporting period. And number 2, note the request for tender advertised but not yet awarded.
Thank you, Councillor Abdullah. Can I have a councillor second that motion? Councillor
Yeah, thank you. Mayor Sally, I'll second that motion.
Councillor Abdullah, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, very briefly. This is a regular report that we receive in every council meeting. It is for this period, for this month. This report is for the period starting 1st of October 2023 to 21st October 2023. And it is in line with the good governance principles of council, whereby all the contracts that are awarded or advertised for tender but have not been awarded, they are all presented to council and to our community for information. And as we note in this report, there are no, in this period, there were no contracts that were awarded under delegation. So our delegation, when we say delegation, it's delegation to the CEO and to the directors. So there were no contracts that were awarded. However, there were a few contracts that were, a few tenders that were advertised, but they have not been awarded yet. And the list of these tenders is listed in this report. And just want to highlight that the delegation is to the Chief Executive Officer and also to the directors. And also for collaborative and third-party purchasing agreements, these contracts are also awarded under delegations wherever they are, and they are also listed in this report. So for this particular period of October 2023, there were no new collaborative purchasing arrangements that were entered. So that's all for the report for this month.
Right, thank you. Councillor Abdullah, would you like to speak to the motion?
I don't think I can really expand on that. I'm looking to next month where hopefully 5 or 6 of these other ones may be actually awarded by that stage and have something to talk about.
Thank you, Councillor Adam. Are there any councillors that would like to speak against the motion? Speak for the motion. No. Councillor Abdullah, any closing comments?
No, thanks.
Very good. Councillors, we'll go to the vote. All those in favour? Councillor, motion carried, unopposed. Councillors, we now go to page 36 of the agenda, item 12.1, Greater Shepparton Heritage Advisory Committee nomination of community representatives. There is a recommendation, on page 36. Can I please have someone put that forward as a motion? Councillor Brophy.
Thank you, Mayor Sali. I put forward the following recommendation, that the council resolve to appoint the following community representatives to the Greater Shepparton Heritage Advisory Committee for a term of 2 years, commencing the 1st of December 2023 and concluding on the 1st of December 2025, that being John Dayton, Jenny Nightingale and Jill Muir.
Great, thank you, Councillor Brophy. Can I have a councillor second that motion, please? Councillor Latson. Councillor Brophy, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, thank you very much. What an extraordinary 3 people to come on to this particular advisory committee. I have been absolutely spellbound in talking to these people over a period of time, and the wealth of knowledge that they've got in the area of Shepparton and Greater Shepparton and the heritage behind their experience and their understanding and knowledge is just phenomenal. I mean, they themselves should be heritage listed. They are incredible people who not only storytelling, but you know, pre-Google, pre-Encyclopedia Britannica, these people have actually been living and breathing in this region and understand so many things. John Dayton, for instance, not that long ago, gave a fantastic session in regards to the four main streets that were named in Shepparton. Of course, Friar Street was actually Fire Street, and there was no R in it, so Sir William Fires. Who was, and for Fire Street, Welsford Street, Vaughan Street and Wyndham Street were all, I think, military personnel from the Crimean War. So it was incredible history that they've looked through, even the rerouting of the Goulburn River near Shepparton and why that's come about. And to have these people on this advisory committee and going forward is just absolutely fantastic. It's about an awareness of and an interest in the cultural history of our municipality. And a willingness to have an input into the issues in relating to this particular heritage. So I very, very strongly and very happy to recommend this particular one.
Thank you, Councillor Brophy. Councillor Latson, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor Sally. I'd like to, as the committee, councillor committee representative on the Greater Shepparton Heritage Advisory Committee, I just want to state how much of a privilege it is to be on this particular committee, because over a long period of time, I've, had a little interest in heritage, and through Lost Shepparton and Shepparton Heritage Centre, and recently attended the Rootner Heritage AGM, just to see what the passion and the interest that they have and the knowledge. It's deep, and I'm not going to say that it's people should be heritage listed, but I wouldn't go that far. But yeah, I just want to say what an honour it is to be on that committee. Thank you, Mayor.
Very good on you, Councillor Latson. Are there any councillors that would like to speak against the motion? Any councillors that would like to speak for the motion? Any closing comments, Councillor Brophy?
No, thank you.
Your councillors will now go to the vote. All those in favour? Motion carried, unopposed. Councillors, we now go to page 40 of the agenda and 41 for item 12.2, which is GB Link land sale. So just councillors that are moving that as a motion, it is over 2 pages. Can I have a councillor please put that forward as a motion?
Thank you, Mayor Sally, and I note that the report or the motion does go over 2 pages, and I'm being told that I don't need to read the whole lot out, but that the council points 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and 7 noting point number 3, which stated in the written agenda here in accordance with section 114 of the Act, and so forth, Community Engagement Policy 2021, that is now been changed to 2023, and that's the only change, so I'd move that motion, that recommendation is a motion.
Thank you, Councillor Dobson. Can I please have a councillor second that motion? Can I get a councillor second that motion, please? Spinks. Councillor Dobson, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, certainly, and this is a big report, and it's probably one of the most important reports that we've had, certainly in the 3 years that this cohort has been on the council, and it talks about under the section 114 of the local government, resolves to commence the required statutory processes to give notice of an intention to sell one or more lots, and it goes on to add. I'll just read out 2 or 3 of the points that I think are really important. This project calls for a staging link. Given the amount of land comprising the whole of the GB Link site, and it's a big block of land, which is intended that GB Link is to be constructed and released in stages, and as is any development, that's the way you do it. The staging plan of the ultimate development layout of GB Link is provided as an attachment, and we have that. The proposed work programs in stage 1 are important, and they are the design, and this is the design phase covering delivery of services, water, sewer, and gas from Rupner, etc., power and communication, a concept design for the roundabout, for example. The next one is work packages including package 1 is the provision of services down Simpson Road to the northern boundary of GB Link. Work package 2 is the road access enhancement, includes the design and delivery of a single lane 80 k's an hour B double rated roundabout to Lambert Road and Simpson Road. And package 3 is 4 serviced lots and associated service infrastructure. So out of the whole design, we're looking at an initial stage of 4 lots. I'll now go on to, and I've picked out some of these points that I think would be of interest to the community. The sale and acquisition of land policy, which is the way that the council has to operate under the Act. The process of selling land is governed by section 114 of the Local Government Act 2020. Council sale and acquisition of land policy, July 2022, adds layers of additional considerations for council and provides guidance to help processes meet best practices and legislative requirements. So there's the 2 issues, the best practice and the legislation. The next part that I'd want to point out is as follows. We've had 3 reports. We've had 3 reports, interim 1, 2, and then the final. Interim 1 sought to determine whether exceptional economic circumstances exist to pursue land sale of GB Link via private treaty and consider any probity issues, and I think this is an important issue. The evaluation considered this previous unsuccessful efforts, and I think this is the important part, that we've tried before to sell this block of land or these lots, and we can now go to section 114. The local economic growth, the shortage of land, industrial lots, loss of funding and recent growing interest in the site. So what this talks about is that the circumstances now are different from first round. Interim 2, and this is an important, report 2, this is an important one, was prepared to assess the economic benefits of stage 1 and support the funding application to repurpose the remaining 8.5 million from the Regional Rail Revival Program. So that in due course is designed to come in to be an integral part. I now go on to a business case, and every project like this must have a business case. The GB Link has its own. The expected outcomes and benefits, outlined in the business case include the attraction of future investment, enhancing the competitiveness of local and regional industry, easing pressure on industrial land suppliers' longest-term economic benefits. Now, we're dealing with these sorts of issues all the way through, so this project is designed to support that. The stage one has the capacity to generate 80 direct and 70 indirect jobs over the enabling infrastructure construction phase. Private investment in building approximately 140,000 square metres of factories and warehouses, and supporting 770 direct and 780 indirect jobs. 138 million discounted added to the economy during the construction phase, and as I've just talked about the jobs, additional value added to the economy generated by ongoing employment. Stage one will give over a 20-year appraisal period of $1.3 billion. So that's the reports that we're going on at the moment. And finally, I will look at page 59, and I'll conclude on this, that says, Section 114 of the Local Government Act requires council, before selling or exchanging land, to publish notice of its intention, and this is what this proposal talks about, of its intention to sell the land, undertake a community engagement process in accordance with its community engagement policy, and obtain a recent valuation. This report recommends that council begin this process and further considers this item after the completion of the consultative process. Mayor Sally, look, there's a lot more involved in that, and I would suggest anybody in the community who's interested in this particular project, as I say, it's one of the biggest we've ever undertaken, to have a really good look at it. It's exciting. There's lots of money involved, but to my way of thinking, this is the start of bringing national and international companies to the Goulburn Valley to help the processing of product that we've got here for sale. And now that the federal government has decided to give away our $208 million, this is a good start.
Thank you, Councillor Dobson. Perfect timing. Councillor Spinks, would you like to speak to the motion?
I will. I thank Councillor Dobson for the breadth of information that he's covered in that. I'm going to speak probably a bit more basically in the way that makes sense in my head. This project's been sitting around for a very, very long time. And it finally has gotten to a point where, as it says in the report, it has now reached the critical positive tipping point demonstrated by the growing interest from investors in the site. Now, there has in the past been interest from investors that has fallen through, but we feel strongly that these are genuinely interested parties that are willing to consider making Greater Shepparton their home or expanding their operations here in Greater Shepparton. And as we know, there is a need for new and expanded industrial spaces within our municipality. We have a responsibility to meet that need, and this particular block of land has something done with it. I want the community to be rest assured that this particular project undergoes very intense scrutiny from councillors constantly, and is very robustly considered at all stages. So the fact that it's finally gotten to the point where we're putting it out to the community is very exciting. I myself still hold reservations, not about the project itself. I think that this is one of those potentially high risk, high reward moments that you have to take to push your municipality forwards in a positive way. But my concern has always been around the impact that it has on the surrounding small towns, and the impact that it has, or not the impact that it has, but the fact that it needs to benefit the communities of Greater Shepparton and the ratepayers of Greater Shepparton. Ultimately, that is a non-negotiable outcome that needs to happen, and if that cannot be, if that is at risk, that needs to be scrutinised the entire way through. I right now feel that it will be okay, but what I really want to see with this consultation is, I'm speaking to the community on this part, is I really want to see what you think. I have had concerns around how the increase in traffic, the increase in trucks and freight traffic is going to impact on the smaller communities, especially Murchison, especially Mooroopna. as we know that we're working hard to get trucks out of those spaces. It's also an area that isn't connected by any footpaths or any bike paths, and all of this work that we're doing around livability still needs to be considered. And I'm working very hard to make sure that is considered, but I want to hear from the community and see if it's a priority to you. And I want to know what else you're concerned about or supportive of when it comes to this particular project and particular block of land. It's a big thing that we're proposing, and we want to make sure we're covering all aspects of it in that consideration. So we are putting it out to the community. As spoken by Councillor Dobson, the way that it will work is we're proposing to stage the development. We would be looking to connect services and develop what is stage 1, which would be potentially 4 blocks. So that is what is for the initial consideration. What would happen with the remainder of the project is still up for consideration, but that is what you'll be seeing and what you'll be considering within the consultation period. So that is probably my overview of the project itself. I also just want to note for the agenda item, the additional funding request of $100,000 to be provided. I think the important thing I just want to note is that just because you have the money doesn't mean you have to spend the money. So if we can get away with not spending that $100,000, that would be the better way to go. But noting that everything is more expensive, costs occur, and this allows a buffer, a contingency to make sure that we can do the steps that are needed to see this through. So certainly supporting today, but with that slight condition on the side. So they're my thoughts. Thank you.
Very good, Councillor Spinks. Are there any councillors that would like to speak against the motion? Councillor Summer.
Thank you, Mayor Sally. I'm going to speak against the motion, and it's purely to be devil's advocate, and that is all. So
Just a friendly reminder to just place mobile phones on silent if you can. Thanks, guys.
when I was first introduced to this project, it was a very different tempo in the council. The CEO at the time advised us that it would be very risky, that the logistics wouldn't have the same efficiencies without the bypass, and that didn't seem to be on the horizon anytime soon. And just recently, we have been informed that all the funding for that has been pulled, so that's even less likely to happen. And they also said that we were having trouble finding tenants and nobody had committed. So to me, it seemed like a really risky thing to do, and none of those points have changed to any degree that might make me change my mind at this time. As far as the recommendation, motion itself goes, point 6, with which authorises the memorandums of understanding. I think that's too early to be doing that before it comes back to council. Point 7 notes additional funding of $100,000 to be provided in the budget. Now, we are in a budget deficit, as we know, and this just keeps getting bigger and bigger, and it could be bigger than Ben-Hur by the time we're finished with it. $500,000 was to go towards the business case, which I thought was ample at the time, and now hands out asking for more. So in terms of local government, in my experience, just as devil's advocate again, when councils, and this is a general comment, not just this one, handle big projects, we often have cost blowouts that we did not expect. That's like when I'm referencing things such as the art gallery, which is supposed to cost 30 million at the beginning of it, and it was about 3 times that amount by the end of it. We're talking even bigger with this one. So
yeah, Councillor Dobson. Councillor Dobson, what's your point of order?
Point of order is that it was overestimate of what the property cost of the art gallery was 50 million.
with the roadworks and things, it costs this council.
We won't debate. We'll move on, Councillor Summer, but just be clear on your figures if you can, please.
Okay, fair enough. So from what I can tell, the purpose of this GB Link land sale is to accelerate jobs and growth, which is fantastic. We all love jobs and growth. It does fly in the face of our climate emergency, though. It will put more cars on the road. It is near a rail intermodal transport that doesn't work. In order to get that going, we may need to have a feasibility study that we can send to the state government to try and help us with that. 54. So it also says this project may create financial obligations not contemplated by the 23-24 budget or 4-year financial plan. And it indicates we may need to borrow to cover these costs. And it also mentions we may not be able to pursue or have to defer other strategic priorities. and that a failure to achieve lot sales for stage 1 will result in pressure on council's financial sustainability. So this is a big thing, and I think perhaps we need to hasten slowly. It's been 27 years in the making, and all of a sudden we're talking about putting budget allocations in prior to even consulting before the next budget. There is a table here that mentions how much it's likely to cost. What's written in the report with words doesn't actually reflect the capital cost above the bottom table on page 57, if you wanted to have a look. The total's there, I won't read it out, but it's quite hefty. The GB Link business case, as wonderful as that is, we have seen business cases that don't go anywhere near the kind of estimates we get. And it also says benefit cost assessment is anticipated to yield a negative return. That was only when focused on the road use benefit components. It doesn't take the other scales of the economy into account, which is there. So there is a local roads and community infrastructure program that we could access $1.3 million from. There is a huge call for our roads to be improved, and that is all over the municipality. If we put all those eggs in one basket, it's likely some roads will miss out. Gosh, sorry it's so clunky. I didn't actually write down in words what I was going to say. So really the risk is, if we don't get enough people to sign up to this agreement, we are committed and liable for the transport, for the gas, for the sewage, for the everything we need for that site, which is multiple millions and millions of dollars, and it might be that we only get 1 or 2 people in there. So to me, it's too risky for local government. I still think we should consider potentially selling it to a private developer for them to do it. It would cut the cost considerably, and we'd still have the same outcome for our municipality, but I'm willing to go with the majority. Thank you for letting me say that, and we'll see what happens after consultation.
Thank you, Councillor Summer. Are there any councillors that would like to speak for the motion? Councillor Brophy.
Thank you, Mayor Sarley. Going back some time ago with the property out there, which is called GB Link, and for most of the municipality and for a lot of people, since the days of Councillor Dobson being mayor here, it's been a long time, and it was seen as very much a white elephant just sitting out there, and it's sat with little movement. Some of that could be attributed in some case to the lack of the bypass being put there. Obviously, we got the two-way freeway all the way from Seymour around the Gambie all the way up to Arcadia, and that's where it stopped. So, you know, with the lack of prioritising from the state government and lack of funding from the federal government, we've seen, and of course in the last week, a hit in terms of that particular access in terms of the bypass. So to some degree, that's why it is set where it has. Further to that, the land is now, we need premium industrial land. Land is really highly sought after, residential, agriculture, but also industrial. And we have a parcel of land there that has that opportunity. So here is an opportunity. It is an opportunity for the region, an opportunity for Greater Shepparton, and it's certainly an opportunity for people in Marupna as well, and speaking to them over there. But it's also an opportunity for the investors. As a famous furniture salesman would once say, grand sale, grand sale, grand sale. We're not giving it away, but the first allocations will be at a discounted rate. And so first in, best dressed. And I know that reading through the recommendation, through the information here, that even though it's deliberately broad in that sense, that there is a proposal to develop lots 1 to 4. And it's highlighted there, one, a storage and warehousing operator, maybe looking at it, food and beverage operator, a distilling group for a development of a facility, a pallet manufacturer. That's exactly what it was designed for in the first place. So if some or all of those came on board, you build it and it grows. So this is a real opportunity here, and I'll make the point here too that it also notes in the recommendation, particularly point 5, that following the completion of the consultation process, any submissions received in relation to the council's intention to sell land within stage 1 of the GB Link will be considered by council at a future scheduled council meeting. So there's checks and balances in that. We do need to invest to make sure that it does develop. Councillor Summer is right in that sense. If there are no takers, then that might be an option on the table just to sell up. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Councillor Brophy. Are there any councillors that would like to speak against the motion? Councillor James.
Thank you, Mayor Sally. Well, look, I'm sort of in the middle here. I want to play the sort of fence-sitting role, and it's difficult to do that. But whilst I recognise the absolute benefits from an economical sense, or the outcomes with this project and the investors, and I want to thank the potential investors also for their interest in this parcel of land. And this is a project which we've had on the board for quite some time. I'm just a little bit concerned, and I've no doubt that a lot of the councillors will feel this way, and a lot of our community would feel this way too as well, about the recent decision about the federal government about not committing towards the funding of the bypass. And I know that doesn't always rely on it, and the whole emphasis was it wasn't really built around the bypass. But I just would feel a little bit more comfortable if we did have that sort of commitment from the government in regards to the bypass. Just a little niggling concern that I do have with that, but the overall benefits of the economical outcome, and I think will be greater for the Shepparton, for our region too as well. Just that little stumbling block. Thank you, Mayor Sally.
Very good, Councillor James. Thank you. Are there any other councillors that would like to speak to the motion? Councillor Adam.
Thank you, Mayor Sally. Look, I've heard everyone's commentary, and I think we've all made some good, valid points. I just want to, I'll support this cautiously, only because it's a notice of intention. We're not at the end point yet. And I know the organisation has had a lot of pressure over many years to try and make this thing work. And I thank our CEO and the rest of the crew for getting such an in-depth report to us on several reports, and we've had several briefings over a period of time. So it's quite large and complex. But I just want to read out the second paragraph of the executive summary, and this is my concern. It's very short. It says there is now growing interest in the GB Link site, primarily attributed to the known lack of alternative available large industrial sites, both locally and regionally. From evidence and anecdotally, large plots of land for industry, logistics and manufacturing with efficient transport connections to major international and interstate freight gateways that are development ready are hard to find. Well, they're hard to find because this council hasn't probably done the right thing over a few years and found other areas. That area out there, GB Link, as much as we've touched on it here today, that the bypass was an integral part, I think it was more than integral. I think it was 90% of the motivation for that site out there. With the hit we've just received in the last few days or week or so, a bypass, if it's actually a thing that can be achieved, which I highly doubt, could be 10, 15, 20 years away or never. We have an alternate route out on our east, which does link to these interstate freight gateways. There's a rail there. I know I've been banging on about this for many years. However, we're out there now, and we've put a lot of money. It's cost a lot of money over many decades out there too, actually. It's not just sitting there costing nothing. It does cost money to maintain and keep alive. So I understand why the pressure is to try and make it work. Yeah, I think we've fundamentally made an error from many years ago. I don't think we can repair that now. We need to do something with that site, but I'm leaning towards what Councillor James said. If this doesn't stack up, we must act quickly and do something with that site. Get rid of it, when I say get rid of it, get a private developer to potentially do the stuff we're talking about. Because in this report, it's obvious to me that these first 4 blocks, we will not make any profit out of this. It's the end of this, end stages where potentially the margin comes in. Well, that could be 5 or 10 years away. And whether this council can financially hold out to then, I have my reservations. So I will support it because it's an intention, but I'm very cautious in my support.
Thank you, Councillor Adam. Are there any other councillors that would like to speak to the motion? Councillor Abdullah.
Thank you, Ms. Ali. I'll just add that, this report, first of all, I want to say well done to our officers who have really done a very fine piece of work. It's a very intense and comprehensive report. It captures many aspects of this project. It captures the history, the changing and the evolving environment in which this project is operating. and funding opportunities or missed opportunities or all of those. So just want to emphasize that yes, it's a very exciting project. We can see lots of benefits, but what I'm hearing is, and in our briefings also we have heard that there's a fair deal of skepticism as well. But again, as Councillor Spinks said, that high risk, high return. So projects with high risk, we are looking at high rewards as well. In terms of risks, the risks have been highlighted by Councillor Adam and others, but I just want to highlight that in this report, page number 55, there's a high-level risk assessment that has been done. And many of the risks that we have discussed here, they have been included. Officers have given a good consideration to these risks. For instance, the risk of investor not secured, the risk of project does not proceed. So all those risks have been highlighted, and risk rating has been done, and a high-level mitigation plan has also been identified. So I'm comfortable in that sense that we are looking at all the benefits and all the risks, and we'll travel very cautiously. All the best to all of us and to the community, because the rewards of this project are going to be huge. If we can reap those rewards in good time, that's really going to benefit our community. That's all.
Very good. Thank you, Councillor Abdullah. Any other councillors that would like to speak to the motion? Councillor Latson.
Thank you, Mayor Sali. I'd like to congratulate Peter, the exec team, and all the council staff involved for the considerable amount of work involved over a long period of time in getting this project to this point. In my opinion, build it and they will come, just as they have for other developments in comparable regional areas. And why wouldn't investors want to come to Greater Shepparton, the fruit bowl of Australia? High risk, high reward, and it's time to push all the poker chips in. Thank you, Mayor Sali.
No question. Before I go to Councillor Dobson for some closing comments, I think every other councillor's had an opportunity to say some things. I think all of you have been covered, but I'll just quickly add my two bobs to it, which obviously some really important things have been mentioned. I think Councillor Adam and a few others have clearly highlighted that it's our intent. So it's our intent to effectively resolve what has been out there for a number of years now, and I probably take it as that we should be really excited about this opportunity as this council that is potentially, and I say potentially because we've still got to go through a really important step, not only tonight, determining the outcome of this, but progressing into next year's budget and what does that look like, and making sure that those investors that have shown keen interest in our region for all the important things that Councillor Latson mentioned and sort of took the words out of my mouth, that we are the food bowl of Australia, and we know how important that is, and we know how important that industry is, and they want to come here because we can service that industry. And I think that's what's important, is that they don't want to just come here and invest because there's spare land. We can service the industry, and I think it's so important that community are aware of that. So look, many steps still sort of need to come between now and obviously endorsing what possibly will be a significant budget requirement next year. I really hope, and this is something that when I put my hand up to run for council, a couple of the things that sort of went through my head around, what do I want to leave? What sort of legacy do I want to leave? And it's about me being able to contribute to our community, growing our economy. That's what I'm really focused on, growing our jobs, but most importantly, providing opportunities. And this is exactly what that is. It's providing opportunities. And I see that as my core responsibility, sitting around the table to progress these types of projects, get positive outcomes, and promote investment, and I think that the legacy that can be left from that will be unmatched, and we've seen it in other regional areas. And again, I know it's been mentioned that a lot of work's gone into it, and I have to commend, I'm probably a little bit more privy to seeing the hard work that Pete and Jed and her economic development team, and I think everyone's been across it really, so I really commend the work that's been done to this particular point. It's really exciting, and we should be motivated to resolve this long-standing matter. It's an underutilised asset, and I say let's keep pushing and let's get positive outcomes. That's what we're here to do. Closing comments, Councillor Dobson.
Yeah, look, to Peter and to the economic team and the balance of our management team, this is just a terrific report. It's a wonderful report, but it's not full of all the good bits. It's full of what could go wrong too. But the good thing about this is that this report straight off says that there are 4 buyers ready to go. Okay? All we've got to do is put the product on the ground and they're ready to go. And what happens then when you sell that land, the balance of the land, even though it's raw land, it still has an increased value because it becomes from farming to commercial. And even if we sold the land in bulk at a later date because we didn't want to go on with this development, that land has a higher value than just a raw land value in a farming sense. So build it and they will come. And Councillor Ladson has never said a truer word. You can see that wherever you go, right, whether it be in Melbourne or in regional Victoria, that the progressive councils around Victoria are daring, but they're responsible. And I think this is where this council sits. I take all the stuff that we've been talked about the negatives, we can pick it out, and we will take note of some of that stuff that needs to be picked out. And I think overall, I see this as the start of a wonderful expansion program of people coming to Shepparton, of industry and commerce and logistics, and we're only 2 hours away from the ports of Melbourne. If we can put in a decent terminal here, why can't we become, for example, why can't we have an ASCII, the people who do all the, making sure you're not bringing the wrong stuff into, I forget the name of the word. We can be all things to all people if we get this project going. So well done to the team, and councillors, I really respect every comment that's been made here this afternoon because they're all relevant.
Thank you, Councillor Dawson. Councillors, we will now go to the vote. All those in favour? Against? Motion carried. Councillors, we now go to page 61 of the agenda, item 12.3, land acquisition at 420 Golden Valley Highway, Shepparton North. There is a recommendation. Can I please have a councillor put that forward as a motion?
Thank you, Mayor Sally. I'll move that the council, 1, authorise the Chief Executive Officer to undertake the administrative procedures and acquire by legal agreement or compulsory acquisition the proposed road land portion of land at 420 Golden Valley Highway, North, including pursuant to the processes under the Land Acquisition and Compensation Act 1986 Victoria, and to take all steps necessary to resolve the consideration or compensation payable to finalise the matter, and 2, authorise the Chief Executive Officer to sign and seal all documentations associated with or necessary to effect the acquisition and finalisation of the matter.
Thank you, Councillor Summer. Can I have a councillor second that motion, please? Councillor Ladson. Councillor Summer, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor Sally. This is a proposal to acquire land that will enable the extension of Warren Bungle Drive to connect to a planned residential estate. It will provide an east-west access road between Verney Road and the Goulburn Valley Highway and improve the access of the surrounding road network for existing and future residential estates, which makes perfect sense to me, having looked at that. Just mention that acquisition is only an option, and if we can reach a legal agreement prior, that is what we will do. And I'll also mention that these motions that we put forward for land acquisition don't have a capped level of spend. I know there is a lot of checks and balances on the operational level that they go through, but in terms of councillor accountability, I have asked for more checks and balances and an audit of how far we've deviated from land value on previous motions to this effect.
Very good. Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Ladson, would you like to speak to the motion?
No, thank you, Mayor Sally.
Are there any councillors that would like to speak against the motion? Any councillors that would like to speak for the motion? Any closing comments, Councillor Summer?
No, thank you.
Councillors, we will now go to the vote. All those in favour? Carried and opposed. Councillors, we now go to page 68 of the agenda, item 12.4, which is proposed sale of land at 45 Parkside Drive, Shepparton, Golden Valley Health and Victorian Health Building Authority proposal. There is a recommendation. Can I please have a councillor put that forward as a motion? Councillor Ladson.
Thank you, Mayor Sally. I'd like to move the recommendation on page 68. That the council, 1, abandon the proposal to sell part of the land at 45 Parkside Drive, Shepparton to Women's Housing Ltd, since the Women's Housing Ltd's funding application under the Big Housing Build program was not successful. 2, note the progress of the Parkside Gardens feasibility assessment. 3, authorize the commencement of a new statutory process pursuant to section 114 of the Local Government Act 2020 to consider an alternative proposal to sell part of the land at 45 Parkside Drive, Shepparton, to the Victorian Government Department of Health for health infrastructure, new early parenting centre, and Golden Valley Health for staff accommodation. And 4, note that following the completion of the consultation process, any submissions received in relation to council's intent to sell part of the land at 45 Parkside Drive, Shepparton, will be considered by council at a future scheduled council meeting.
Thank you, Councillor Ladson. Can I have Councillor second that motion? Councillor Brophy.
I second that motion.
Councillor Ladson, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor Sally. This potential project really excites me, that coming to being a young father myself, I know how important it is to have a building of this calibre local to all residents and available to all residents. And I'm just so excited for the project. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ladson. Councillor Brophy, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Sally. Just a little bit of a history in this particular area of Parkside Drive. So if we go back probably nearly 2 years ago now, we were approached by under the big housing builder, the Women's Housing Limited, where they came to us with a proposal of 45 dwellings of affordable housing to be placed in that particular precinct. There were objections to that, and we heard the objections, but at June last year at an OCM, we agreed to sell part of that to the Women Housing League to facilitate that particular development, and also undertake a feasibility assessment of the development of the remaining stages of the Parkside Gardens estate. In September last year, we were informed that unfortunately, due to the lack of funding, or they were unsuccessful with the funding to be able to get from the Victorian Government, that the sale of that particular development could not go ahead as we had agreed on. In the interim period of time, obviously, we've now had approaches, and we've spoken with a number of other different authorities, including the Victorian Government or the Department of Health, for a health infrastructure. Now, this is a new early parenting centre, and this is fantastic, particularly for this particular development in that area, as well as staff accommodation for Golden Valley Health. We know that that's reasonably close to GV Health, which is the biggest employer in this region, and we know that accommodation is at a premium. So this is a real win for the community here. It's a real win for early parenting. It is an early win it's a good win for GV Health. It's a good win for our whole community there. Noting that, we will have a process, and, submissions will be put in, etc. But this is our intention, to be able to put this forward. And I think that the public, and particularly those living in the area, will be very welcome to this particular development. So I wholeheartedly support this recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Brophy. Are there any councillors that would like to speak against the motion? Any councillors that would like to speak for the motion? Councillor Summer.
Thank you, Ms. Sally. I'm hopeful that the community would be very happy with this proposal. It's not social housing, and as we know, they had social housing in that area many decades ago, which did compound social disadvantage, and they were not keen on that whatsoever. So here we have a lovely facility, potentially, that will bring professionals here. It has easy access for those who need it. It will ensure that parents are supported when it comes to sleeping, feeding, and extra care for their babies, especially those with additional needs. I believe this is perhaps a flow-on from independent member Susanna Sheed's election pledge, which is really great news that she's still managing to enrich the community even without being in office. As a nurse, this makes me incredibly happy, because we know that early years are the most important years. That's where we set our foundations for life, and if we can get that right, we have a happier community. I also just want to mention that the feasibility study for the development of the remaining stages of the Parkside Gardens estate is currently in draft form, and thank Councillor Spence for including that in the previous motion, that we do try to enrich the area. It may be a low demographic area, but those are the ones we arguably should be focusing on even more to improve the livability standards.
Very good. Thank you, Councillor Summer. Any other councillors that would like to speak to the motion? Councillor Spence.
Thank you, yes. I'll start by saying that building of social housing, the women's housing application, would have been a win. But since it naturally is not occurring, this is a good plan B. So I'm very glad to see that this will be coming potentially to that neck of the woods. And most importantly, it's because that estate, the Parkside Gardens estate, the residents of that community are so passionate about their neighbourhood, and they deserve for that to be finished in a positive, enriching way. And this hopefully will be what the catalyst for that to occur. So not only are we looking at putting this out to community consultation, so this will be the new early parenting centre, that site, that accommodation section of it, but at the same time, we are looking at that larger development of what the entire neighbourhood, that entire estate looks like, which is what the community asked for, not only when we did the previous consultation, but well before then. They've been asking for a long time. And I guess we're asking, once again, in some ways there's deja vu, but we're once again asking the community, those residents of the estate and surrounds, to tell us not only what you think of this proposed use of the estate, of this coming to your estate, but of the larger needs that are there. We have tried so hard to incorporate the feedback that you gave the last time, and we hope that we're succeeding in that. But this is an opportunity to once again make sure that we're getting that right and considering that larger estate and how to best make it the neighbourhood that you deserve, and whether that counts as the increased lighting for safety reasons, the increased having a second access way into the estate. The list goes on. We caught it all last time, but we want to catch it all again. So it's going out for community consultation. Please give that feedback, because in the larger scope of it, it's not just this section, it will be the larger residential development as well, which at this point doesn't look like anything but can look like anything. So we'll put it out, we'll ask the community to give feedback once again, but for this portion of it, which I know is what we're discussing today, very, very glad to see it coming and hopefully going ahead.
Thank you, Councillor Spinks. Any other councillors like to speak to the motion? Councillor Abdullah.
Thank you, Ms. Ali. I also want to note that, first of all, yes, it was a bit of disappointment when the grant application from Women's Housing Limited was not successful. And we were just wondering what next, but what has come now before us is very encouraging. First of all, because the two projects that have been identified, they are going to address some critical needs for this community. Early Parenting Center. This community has been advocating for this center for nearly 20 years or so. As the chair of Best Start and Early Years Alliance, I know how hard our alliance has worked on advocating for this early parenting center with state government, and former MP Susanna Sheed worked very hard on that. Finally got the funding, but then the next hurdle was to identify a suitable site. So in all our discussions in the past whole year, our Best Start Early Year Alliance has been talking about this need, that we need to identify the site and get going with this early parenting center. So it's really pleasing to see that we have finally moved forward. There's some progress happening, and I'll encourage our community to look at this proposal very positively. It's a critical need, as I've said. Our AEDV, our Australian Early Development Census data, which tells us about the development of our young children, of our children in early years, is not looking good, has not looked good for a long time. It did show some improvement, but basically we need to do a lot to make sure that all the vulnerabilities that our children face in early years are addressed. And by having this early parenting center, we believe that some of those challenges would be addressed. So it's very important. And the second project, which is about staff accommodation for GB Health, we know how important it is for for the professionals who come here and join GB Health to have housing and accommodation available to them. So all in all, it is looking good. It's looking very encouraging. And I really hope that our community considers these two projects very favorably, and we proceed with that and see the final outcomes. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Abdullah. Are there any other councillors that would like to speak to the motion? Councillor Dobson.
Just quickly, if I can get excited about GV Link, I can get equally excited about this project because I think its benefit in other areas is of similar value to GV Link. I'd like to, and I encourage the residents of the area to be part of the process, whether they're for it or against it. And let's hope they're for it, because we need their input as to the balance of the land as well. I'd like to see a strategic plan come out. There's probably health allied plans to, I suppose, to accommodate other areas of allied health. What does that look like? I don't know, but this is a damn good start. And I think it's fantastic that Golden Valley Health have recognised the site as being ideal for housing. Perhaps they may see the benefit of increasing their housing allocation there. And again, I wonder whether or not affordable housing should be off the agenda altogether in this area. I do have a soft spot for affordable housing.
Clarification, do you mean on the agenda?
Sorry?
Do you mean that it should be
On the agenda.
included?
Yeah, included.
Okay.
Sorry, included in the agenda because, it's all interlinked. And I think if we can prove to Victoria, that we can do these things, you never know where this finishes up. So, well done. And let's hope that the community is right behind us in getting this project up and going.
Thank you, Councillor Dobson. Are there any other councillors that would like to speak to the motion? Councillor Adam.
So I think I've got to say something, otherwise I'm not commenting. This is a really a build it and they will come type of a project. Having a professional services type of facility in that area, I think will give an uplift to the whole area, absolutely. I think this is the general area of the old International Village site, correct? So we couldn't deliver that. This may be a more sensible and productive project in the end, so I fully support it.
Very good. Thank you, Councillor Adam. Are there any other councillors that would like to speak to the motion? Just before I go to Councillor Ladson for some closing comments, I agree with everything that's been said. I think it's vitally important, in particular, the early parenting centre and the GV Health staff accommodation. I mean, the vacant land, since we made the decision regarding women's housing, and then that got taken off the table, and then there's sort of that real element of unknown as to what was going to happen with that space down there. And I really feel for the residents, because you sort of bring them into a conversation and then you inform them through a formal meeting like this, and then they're not privy to the briefings and the other ongoing conversations that we have, and we might be really comfortable with what's happening, and we're sort of not unable to share that important information with them. But sort of here it is now. This is a really exciting step, and dare I say it's like a really strong anchor for that piece of land that really sort of had that big sort of unknown sort of lens on it. So I think, this is great, good to be able to sort of progress things, and I'm really hopeful and confident that we can have this achieved, and I'm excited, and as we've said, that we really want the residents to come on board. At this point, we've afforded them some sort of direction, and hoping that it can be fulfilled between now and then. Councillor Latson, any closing comments?
Thank you, Mayor Sally. It takes a village to raise a child, and in memory of the International Village, I'm thrilled to see an early parenting centre give local children the best start in life. Thank you, Mayor Sally.
Good feed. So that's it. Councillors, we will now go to the vote. All those in favour? Motion carried. Opposed? Councillors, we now go to 77 of the agenda item 12.5, which is 7 dwellings at 57 Mason Street, Shepparton. I do acknowledge that Councillor James and Councillor Adam declare conflict of interest in these matters. All good? Thanks, guys.
Smoke.
Councillors, just again, page 77 of the agenda item 12.5, 7 dwellings at 57 Mason Street, Shepparton. There is a recommendation. Can I please have a councillor put that forward as a motion? Councillor Dobson.
Thank you, Mayor Sally. I'm going to move it. The recommendation that starts on page 77 goes through to 78 and 79 in total. I think it's up on the board there, up on the screen, so I won't read it all, but I'll formally move that recommendation.
Thank you very much, councillor Dobson. Can I have councillor second that motion, please?
I'll second the motion.
Thank you, councillor Spinks. Councillor Dobson, would you like to speak to the motion?
Just in general, when you're looking at planning permits, there are certain criteria that are to be met, whether it's in Shepparton or Melbourne or anywhere else. And if the plans that have been submitted for approval to the council, if those plans are within the planning authority, within the planning permit, really, the plans are there to go ahead. As much as some people may not like what is there, but our hands are tied to a certain extent in relation to having any change. The planning provisions are dictated by the state government, and we adhere to those. I might just refer just quickly to a number of issues that our planning department have put their mind to. There's some amended plans that need to be put up. They're not allowed to alter any layouts. The building and works on endorsed plans to be completed prior to occupation. Drainage discharge plan, urban vehicle crossing requirements, underground connection, Golden Valley Regional Water Corporation, catchment management, etc., and on it goes. And one of the things that was brought up by Councillor Ladson at the briefing session here, I think warrants further examination, and that is when the purple bin comes in, and I think you're referring to that, that when you get these sorts of developments going, that you might have a lot of bins within a small area. And I think this is going to be a development, I think, that we could put out as a plan as to how it should be done. I like the idea of a community type purple bin or a community type green bin. I'm not too sure which one it was now, either one. But I like that idea, but I think in general, I think this is another way of developing Shepparton, and I completely endorse it.
Excuse me. Thank you, councillor Dobson. Councillor Spinks, we should speak to the motion.
Yes, thank you. This is exactly the kind of development that we are needing to see within Shepparton, Greater Shepparton, but Shepparton more importantly, which is the increase of density levels, of diversity of housing types, and availability. The proposal to change this to 7 dwellings is really exciting. This is something I get very excited about, because this is the way that we increase the housing type offering, the access to affordability in our municipality. And it just means people can have homes, and it doesn't always need to be, I think we always approach these as if we're creating something new that's coming out of nowhere. Building a unit, blocks like this already exist in Shepparton, in Greater Shepparton, they exist all over the place. They're already dealing with their bins, so, we'll just ask them how they're doing it and then work it out. I don't think everything needs to be reinventing the wheel. I don't think we have to treat everything like it's this incredible new change that is scary and unknown. Sometimes it already exists, and there are already models that we can look at that are successfully running, and that we can trust are put in place for good reason. I think this is one of those. I think that, having said that, through the permit process, there were many concerns raised, and it is important to note that those concerns have been well considered and either addressed or dismissed where applicable. So it's important to know that you don't do things without any due diligence, but to note that the intention is for these kind of projects to start happening and start happening more, where we're looking to grow and change what some of our streets look like and what some of our spaces look like. This particular residence or particular address has really wonderful locality in terms of transport options, in terms of medical and retail and just everything that you could want in terms of livability. This is the kind of location that you would want to live in, and being able to provide what will be 1 and a couple of 2-bedroom properties is something that is in dire need within our towns. So to be able to hopefully see this come to life is both really exciting and also really standard, and is something that we should just be happy to be doing where applicable, where possible, whenever we can. Thank you.
Great, thank you, councillor Spinks. Are there any councillors that would like to speak against the motion? Any councillors like to speak for the motion? Councillor Brophy.
Thank you, Mayor Sarley. This is urban design at its best, I think. It's in the correct zoning. the correct intent for what it's being designed for, and the provisions that have been afforded. I mean, I must say that the conditions that have been placed on this one are really tight, and possibly as many as I've ever seen on any particular planning permit that's come forward. There are such other developments, as Councillor Smith just alluded to, in the precinct. I think there was one not that long ago in Knight Street, and that was double storey, and there was a number of objections for that. This is single storey, and so and there's 7 units on that. Well constructed in terms of the planning for them and the provisions that's been placed in there. And really, this is the right development for the right precinct. It is urban design.
Thank you, Councillor Brophy. Are there any other councillors that would like to speak to the motion? Councillor Summer.
Thank you, Ms. Sally. I got very excited when I read this whole report because on face value I'm thinking, yes, it's exactly what we need. Medium density housing, it's open to everyone on the market, not just clustered social disadvantage. That was my impression. And the reality is we have no control over how these dwellings will be managed in the future. We only get to assess what's in front of us. So by what I've read, I think it's fabulous. It's exactly what we need. Hopefully it still has a degree of pepper potting. Actually, I'm going to leave it there because I think I'm getting into dangerous territory. I think it's great. High density housing, yes, please.
Thank you, Councillor Summer. Are there any other councillors that would like to speak to the motion? No, any closing comments, Councillor Dobson?
Just that I think Shepparton has got to recognise that the urban sprawl that could be around Shepparton should be contained as much as possible, and council in its wisdom have designated this general area as a higher density area, and I think that's good planning. And I'd like to see more people come into the middle of town, because I can tell you from experience, not a bad place to be.
What are you saying? Thank you, Councillor Dobson. We will now go to the vote. All those in favour? Motion carried on opposed. Can I have someone please get Councillor James?
Leave me.
Yeah, that went well, didn't it? Thank you, councillors. I'll get you to go to page 108 of the agenda, item 12.6, which is 1225 Union Road, Kyla East dwelling. There is a recommendation. Can I please have someone put that forward as a motion?
Thank you, Mayor Sally. I move that the council, in relation to the planning permit application 2022-244, on the basis of the information before the council and having considered all relevant matters as required by the Planning Environment Act 1987, resolves to refuse a planning permit for the use and development of the land for a dwelling for the following reasons. Proposal is contrary to clause 14.01-1S, as it will lead to the loss or fragmentation of productive agricultural land. Proposal is contrary to the decision guidelines of clause 14.01-111 and clause 35.07-6, as it fails to demonstrate a nexus between the dwelling and the agricultural use of the land. Proposal is incompatible with surrounding land use, contrary to the decision guidelines of clauses 35.07-6, and the proposal fails to consolidate existing lots to support the ongoing agricultural use of the land through a process of property reconstruction.
Good. Thank you, Councillor Dobson. Can I have a councillor second that motion, please? Councillor James.
Second that motion. Thank you, Mayor Sally.
Councillor Dobson, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, the executive summary here, I think, says it all. Once again, it's within the bounds of our planning department. They have certain aspects in front of them that they must adhere to, and this application, according to our planning department, it doesn't quite adhere to the planning permits as they see fit. There is some controversy around it, and I agree with that there is some controversy around it, and others may want to speak to that. A planning permit is required for the use and development of the land for a dwelling on a lot less than 60 hectares and in a farming zone once. And I think that appears to be the crux of the matter, that this land is below the 60 hectare threshold. The land is also affected by the land subject to inundation overlay and floodway overlay. However, The dwelling will be located outside these overlays. Access to the dwelling is partly constructed within the LSIO. I think that's got some contradictions in it. The dwelling is proposed to support the operation of a fat lambing enterprise on the family farming land, and there were 7 objections received, and those objections have been noted and discussions have continued. And this is where an interesting factor, and others will want to comment on it. The main grounds of objection were impact of the proposal on the ongoing use of the Caramomus rifle range. I'll leave that there. Officers consider that there is a strong policy basis in the Greater Shepparton planning scheme to protect viable agricultural land from non-agricultural use, including dwellings. And to a certain extent, I agree with that. There's got to be extenuating circumstances for that policy to be varied. The proposal does not seek to consolidate existing land titles to allow for the use of the land, and I would have thought, had that happened, this would have been a different kettle of fish. The proposal is contrary to the agricultural policy and the objectives of the planning scheme, and that is why officers recommend the refusal of the application.
Thank you, Councillor Dobson. Councillor James, would you like to speak to the motion?
Oh, no, thank you, Mayor Sally. Some of the comments I was going to make has already been covered by Gary Dobson, so thank you.
Thank you, Councillor James. Yes, Councillor Brophy.
Yeah, Mayor Sally, I would like to lay this particular item on the table until the next OCM, pending further information. I do require further information on this recommendation. I do hope the councillors will support it.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Brophy. For that, obviously, we've just got to go to a vote to either accept or not the option of laying this item on the table to the next OCM. So, councillors, those in favour of laying this motion on the table to the next OCM for the reasons Councillor Brophy outlined? Motion that's approved. Motion approved. So that item will be laid on the table to the next ordinary council meeting. Thank you, councillors. We now go to page 123 of the agenda, item 13.1, Botanic Gardens Shepparton Advisory Committee, appointment of community representatives. There is a recommendation. Can I please have a councillor put that as a motion?
Very happy to support this recommendation as a motion that the council appoint Community Representative Karen Kilgour to the Australian Botanic Gardens Shepparton Advisory Committee for a period of 2 years, commencing on the 22nd of November 2023 and conclude on the 20th of September 2025.
Thank you, Councillor Dobson. Can I have a councillor second that motion?
Sally, I'll second the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Dobson. Speak to the motion.
Karen Kilgour, along with Jenny Houlihan, were probably the two initial proponents of the Botanic Gardens. They saw something out there, what was the old tip site, and they fought tooth and nail, and our CEO would remember how the council supported that in the early days with very good funding. Karen has been on that committee since day dot. I think we started in about 2008, and we've kept on going. The purpose of this application is that at the time when applications were called for, unfortunately, Karen lost her husband, the late Rod Kilgour, and obviously council sends its condolences to the Kilgour family and especially to Karen. And obviously she had other things on her mind at that time, and the application didn't go through. Subsequently, we've asked for a special consideration, and because there are 8 positions on the committee, on the advisory board, and there are only 7 being filled, Karen Kilgour would be an ideal person to contribute. She is full of lots of ideas, and she's got an enthusiasm that needs defying. Really, she's a terrific person to be on this advisory board, and it's with much pleasure that I put this motion forward. And could I say, at this time, if I've got the platform for people to go out to the Botanic Gardens and make use of it, because plenty of national and international visitors are doing just that, and it's part now of Shepparton's go-to places.
Very good, Councillor Dobson. Councillor Adam, would you like to speak to the motion?
Just very few words. Thank you, Mayor Sally. The name Karen Kilgour and the Botanic Garden are synonymous. They just walk together. Without Karen, I don't think we would be where we are today in the whole project. Obviously with Jenny and all the other people, and Jeffrey himself as well, but Karen has been the main driver, and glad to see her back on board.
Right. Councillor Adam, any councillors speak against the motion? Speak for the motion. Councillor Spinks.
Yeah, I just want to highlight, while I in no way am suggesting anything other then Karen absolutely needing to be on that committee. I do want to just highlight that it absolutely went through the same robust application process that all applications go through. It was still open to the public for anybody to apply for. It just is that Karen was the only application received, which again, on the flip side of that, does not take away from how much merit she absolutely needs to be on that committee. So I just want to make sure that, just highlight that standard council processes were followed for this additional member to the committee.
Councillor Spinks, any other councillors like to speak to the motion? No, any closing comments, Councillor Dobson?
No, thank you.
Very good, councillors, we'll go to the vote. All those in favour? Motion carried and opposed. Councillors, we now go to page 126, and item 14, confidential management received. Item 15, documents for signing and received. We go over the page to 127, item 16.1.1, councillor activities, October 2023. There is a recommendation. Can I please have a councillor put that forward as a motion? Councillor Brophy.
Thank you, Mayor Sarley. I put forward the recommendation that the council receive and note the summary of the councillors' community interactions and informal meetings of councillors.
Thank you, Councillor Brophy. Can I have a councillor second that motion, please? Watson. Councillor Brophy, would you like to speak to the motion?
Well, I just want to point out a couple of activities that took place in October that some people may not be aware of, and particularly we had the Seniors Festival throughout that month, and with so many activities, over 100 different activities throughout that. It was all launched, I think I was with Councillor Summer, breakfast with the birds at Reedy Swamp, which was fantastic with the bird watching fraternity down there. And it's not every day that you actually also get to introduce the Beatles up on stage at Eastbank as well. So there were some terrific highlights for the seniors right through that particular month. Headspace celebrated their 10th birthday in High Street, and they've been fantastic. Being here in the Golden Valley, and particularly in Shepparton, and for the people that they've helped throughout. As was there was a youth accommodation which was launched as well in Middleton Street, and that was well done. I saw the mayor there with that as well, and the way that they've designed that in connection with Salvation Army is absolutely fantastic, and it certainly will help a lot of the youth in the area as well. The SBC Business Excellence Awards, the gala dinner, hats off there to Philip Sellers, who were inducted into the Hall of Fame as well. And just one other shout out to MEAC and Ollie Empowering Communities project over in Marupna, the mural over there, which was done by Tank, but also contributed largely with the participants in the Fairly Leadership program from this year, who put a lot of effort and that into that particular mural. And of course, councillors met afterwards with, as a small town catch-up, or a large city catch-up, if you like, and Marupna is getting bigger and bigger, with the residents as well straight after that. So a lot of activities in October and all terrific things.
Very good. Thank you, Councillor Brophy. Councillor Latson, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor Sally. Just a couple of others. The happy birthday to Headspace, celebrating their 10th birthday. They're doing great work over there. And yeah, the Shepparton Cup was well attended, the Australian Football School, SKOOL. Yeah, thank you, Mayor Sally.
Speak against the motion. Speak for the motion. James.
Thank you, Mayor Sully. Yeah, a couple that events which are worth mentioning. A few councils had the opportunity to go over to Tatura, to the Ritchie's IGA supermarket as well during that period too as well. And what a remarkable centre that is. So I would encourage everyone to go over and have a look at that supermarket. It's great for the community of Tatura too as well now. It provides them great options there for shopping. As mentioned, the Headspace Day was a great day. They do fantastic work in our community for our younger generations as well. A couple of others was the woodworkers, the Golden Valley Woodworkers Wood Show. There are some really talented members that we have in our community who are doing remarkable stuff with wood. So just a shout out to the Woodworkers Club, Emily Slaughterhouse and etc. They do a fantastic job down there. And again, for the MEAC and the mural over Marupna, that's a great acquisition to Marupna. Just a great lift for the Marupna community too as well over there. And also to the students who worked on that mural as well. I read a couple of articles. There was an article in the Shep News today, and the kids gained some really great momentum and confidence out of doing that. And it's a landmark as well. It's a landmark on Maribna, so that these kids have got a great opportunity. As they grow older, they can say that they contributed to that mural as well. But that's about it. Thank you, Mayor Sally.
Very good, Councillor James. Any other councillors like to speak to the motion? No, any closing comments, Councillor Briefing?
Thank you.
Now go to the vote. All those in favour? Motion carried, unopposed. Councillors, we now go to page 129 of the agenda, item 17.1, notice of motion, amendment or rescission. There is a recommendation. Can I please have a councillor put that forward for motion? Councillor Abdullah.
Thank you, Ms. Ali. I would like to move the recommendation on page 129 as a motion, that the council, number one, acknowledge that sections of the Greater Shepparton's community are deeply impacted and grieving due to the events unfolding in Gaza. These communities have strong family, social, and above all, human connection with the victims of the war in Gaza. Number two, write a letter to the federal government to take the following actions. A, condemn the initial attacks on civilians and subsequent attacks on hospitals, schools, and refugee shelters that has resulted in the killing of thousands of civilians, including women and children, in the current conflict. B, call for an immediate cessation of hostilities in Gaza, Palestine. And C, support the UN resolutions for an honourable peace and truce in Palestine.
Thank you, Councillor Abdullah. Can I have a councillor second that motion?
Thank you, Mayor Sally. I'll second the motion.
Councillor Abdullah, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, thank you. So first, I wish to recognise the support and assistance a few of my fellow councillors provided in shaping this final motion. This collaborative effort enabled the approval of this notice of motion by the CEO after undergoing a comprehensive risk and legal assessment process. The world is watching the escalated destruction and horrifying images of the war in Gaza, an issue that has shocked the international community. I strongly believe that the Council has a moral obligation to support sections of our community that have a strong family, social, and above all, human connection with the victims of the catastrophe in Gaza. This motion acknowledges that the impact of this international conflict is felt right here in our local community in Greater Shepparton. This motion asks the Council to acknowledge the deep hurt, distress, and agony that sections of our local community are experiencing. This motion calls for the Council to be the local community's voice. This motion also asks the Council to convey this community's message to the federal government for it to take 3 actions that are outlined in this motion. While bringing this motion to the table, many of my colleagues questioned me about its benefits. I was asked what I was trying to achieve out of it. It has been said that these are matters of international affairs and not matters with which Council is concerned. I have been told that supporting one side or the other in an overseas war is not our role. I challenge these narratives and views and remind everyone that local councils have a clear role in advocating for their communities. Local government is the level of government closest to its people. It is the first point of call for our local community, the advocate and messenger to other levels of government. There is already precedence where local councils in Australia have taken a stance on one side or the other of the conflict. In every role that I hold, as an individual, as a councillor, a local community member, having participated in peace protests in Shepparton and Melbourne, I am, like many of our local community members, am deeply disturbed by the distressing news and images emerging from Gaza. The massacre of innocent civilians, babies, children, elderly, medical workers, journalists, the scale of destruction and the hell on earth. This madness has to stop for the sake of humanity. This motion acknowledges that remaining silent is not an option. This international conflict is directly impacting the health and well-being of people in our very own local community in Greater Shepparton. They are sad and they are in pain at the actions of the Western powers and democracies, including Australia, for choosing to abstain from voting on the UN resolution and calling for a ceasefire. They are hurt and emotionally traumatized by the violation of human rights for the people of Palestine. These members of our local community are feeling helpless to stop this massacre. They expect Australian government to condemn not only the initial attacks on civilians, but also the subsequent killing and mutilating of tens of thousands of innocent people in Gaza. So we, as councillors and community leaders, must listen to this community and support their voices in writing to the federal government. We, as councillors, must not suppress these voices under the pretext that councils should not get involved in international disputes. I repeat, silence is not an option anymore. Councils cannot operate in a cocoon disengaged with their communities. 2 peace protests have been held right here in Shepparton. It's a grassroots effort to call for peace and truce. And we as council must listen to our people's concerns. In closing, my fellow councillors, I invite you to take a considerate position on this motion, which is simply asking for peace, compassion, and giving a voice and visibility to Greater Shepparton's community by humanity. Let us listen to them because they are part of this local community. This community is seeking visibility, acknowledgement, and support. Let us not fail them. Let us steer clear of exclusionary policies that make people feel unheard and ignored. The council's duty is to prioritize our community's well-being and address their valid concerns by listening to them. So we must stop and listen to our community. We must not be bystanders when the community asks us to advocate for peace and truce in the wake of a massive humanitarian crisis. Let's be on the right side of the history. Thank you.
Councillor Adam, would you like to speak to the motion?
Reserve my right, thank you, Mayor Sally.
Reserve your right. Thank you. Are there any other councillors that would like to speak against the motion? Are there any councillors that would like to speak for the motion? Councillor Spinks.
Thank you. I want to start by thanking Councillor Abdullah for bringing this to the table. I know you've been under strong pressure to change the way that this would finally come to the table, and your stoicism through that is truly admirable. Thank you. This notice of motion, for me, is quite simple to support. I don't know how anybody who's been watching what is occurring could not want to advocate for peace. I know that many of us around the table have been to community events and are starting to understand what this means for our community, have heard and felt the pain that is happening through parts of our community, but that we all feel, I think, in small, or we all should feel. And how could we not want to do something about that? Over the past week, through very different circumstances, I've had many community members telling me that I should stick to roads, rates and rubbish. And my response to them is that our role is to meet the needs of our community members and to be the voice for those community members. And to that I say there is no limit to what that covers and what that entails. And this is just one more thing in the endless list of ways that we can serve our community. Further to that, We pride ourselves on our multiculturalism. We talk about it all the time. It comes up in every way, how multicultural Greater Shepparton is, how much pride we take in that. And it comes down to so much more than just food and dance and holidays. And it is moments like this when we can see that that multicultural community is connected to an entire globe, and we cannot but help but pay attention to what is important to them. And most importantly, there is a part of the community that is asking us to care about this and asking us to advocate on their behalf and be their voice. And that is what this motion is responding to. And it's really not that much to ask. It's asking to write a letter of advocacy. That is something we do every day on endless matters all the time. We are writing a letter of advocacy and we are caring deeply about our community. There are some who may argue we should be doing more, and that's certainly for the community to judge as well. But if this is what we can get across the table, if this is an action that we can take, I would support it wholeheartedly, and I would encourage all of the councillors around the table to do that as well. How could we not ask for peace? How could we not ask the government to advocate for a ceasefire? I had hoped this wouldn't even need to come to the table, because how could this still be going so after so much time has passed? But here we are. And if we don't make this call today, we'll have missed our opportunity, as Councillor Abdullah said, to be on the right side of history.
Are there any councillors that would like to speak to the motion? Councillor Summer.
Thank you, Mayor Sally. I have actually prepared something this time. I hope we don't overstep the mark on anything. Okay, first I'd like to acknowledge the devastating impact that these events have had on our multicultural community and the broader population. And I'd also like to acknowledge the courage in placing this notice of motion into the agenda in the face of its resistance. And I would also like to acknowledge that the wording of this NOM has changed significantly from the original draft. And I think that demonstrates respect for positions of fellow councillors and for the political process of local government. So what we do have in front of us here is not a call to arms for the Australian government. It's simply a letter requesting peace. And no doubt, regardless, a great many Greater Shepparton residents would prefer that we don't get involved in an international war. However, this small gesture of writing a letter will offer much comfort for all those with Gaza-Palestine links. So Greater Shepparton has always been a haven for refugees, many who do flee war. We have been asked on numerous occasions to take action on wars happening all around the world, and so far we have abstained, and I thought for good reason. I hope this doesn't set a precedent for ourselves and other councils to anecdotally take sides in international conflicts. I do not want Australia to be a target of war. However, our multicultural population is growing. We are a refugee-friendly zone, and we hold a designated migrant area agreement. It is almost expected, moving forward, that these political stances will be taken from time to time. As a pacifist, I don't necessarily agree with that direction, but we do have this notice of motion in front of us. It's valid, and it needs to be taken on its merits. Now, I am not an expert. All I can say is my personal opinion, unqualified as it is. On the surface of media reports, it does appear that there has been questionable occupation of Palestinian land for many decades, and that would create a perfect breeding ground for extreme terrorist attacks. The attacks were beyond reproach, but they do not justify outright genocide against innocent civilians, and that's the narrative coming through from my perspective. Australians are only now realising the devastating impact of genocide on our First Nations people. It leaves the innocent hurt, grieving, and angry. No good can come from it. And considering we're likely to receive refugees as a direct result of displacing 1.5 million people in Gaza, we must continue to ask for peace. It's been famously quoted that hate cannot drive out hate, only love can do that. So I'll take an opportunity to ask that we remain grateful for peace in Australia and Greater Shepparton. Peace, in the end, is the ultimate goal. We must teach our children not to follow the footsteps of war, because they're tasked with creating a better world. For those impacted, reach out to support services, find solace in family and friends, switch off the news, try to stay busy, focus on where you want the world to be, not where it is now. And regardless of whether or not this motion passes, please know Greater Shepparton councillors will support you in our personal capacity to the best of our abilities. So I support the motion.
Thank you, councillor. Any other councillors that would like to speak to the motion? Before I come to your, reserve your right to reply, I'll just add my thoughts. And obviously, firstly, I personally pray for peace in any conflict taking place around the world that may be connected to people of our region, and some of you in the room tonight as well. But as a councillor of Greater Shepparton, I do not see it as my formal role to have a formal position on international conflict, which is highly sensitive for many people within our community and beyond. So for that reason, I will be abstaining from the vote. Councillor Adam, would you like to reserve your right?
Thank you, Mayor Sarley. Firstly, I'd like to thank Councillor Abdullah for putting forward this motion. Shows a lot of courage and foresight. In relation to concerns regarding its suitability in this forum and whether it falls within the purview of our function as a council, let me say that any issue that affects our community or part thereof must be of concern to council. Any issue that our community specifically raise with us is absolutely our concern. So in the service of this community, we are technically, but more importantly, morally obligated to address these concerns and offer whatever support, irrespective of how ineffective it may ultimately be. That said, this current conflict in Gaza cannot be resolved by resolution of this or any other council. But as thinking, feeling human beings, we cannot ignore the inhumanity that took place on October 7th and the subsequent inhuman response taking place as we speak. As private citizens, we can draw our own conclusions as to what is occurring in Gaza, historically or currently. But as a councillor and a council, I believe our involvement can only be in response to the well-being concerns of our community members. As a successful multicultural community, international events and crises are bound to affect sections of our community, as is the case right now. Ironically, many of Greater Shepparton residents are here because of such conflicts in their respective homelands. This motion is about standing with our community and with every other compassionate, caring human being in calling for a stop to the carnage. I cannot see how calling for peace and an end to killing can be misinterpreted as meddling in international affairs. Commentary on the decades and centuries, if not millennia, of disagreement and conflict is not a subject that I as a councillor am qualified to make. But as a parent, grandparent, I can only imagine the gut-wrenching grief that all the families of the extinguished innocent lives must be feeling. Conversations are being heard about the disproportionate deaths on one side, somehow implying that if they were even, it would somehow be less egregious and more acceptable. Deaths of innocents, whether proportionate, cannot be rationalised or reconciled numbers on a spreadsheet. No deaths are acceptable, not one. There is no moral high ground to be had here, just the immorality of ending lives. Even though globally this motion may be likened to screaming into a hurricane, we are asking the Australian government to call for an immediate ceasefire to the collective punishment being enforced upon yet another group of completely innocent human beings. We also ask the federal government to acknowledge and equitably condemn all the violence and death being perpetrated upon all the innocents. We can only hope that this message being proposed in this motion today can be amplified to resonate with the relevant leaders and decision makers of the combative states. There must be another way to find true peace, as continuing this cycle of violence will only ensure further violence and retribution into the future. Ultimately, a futile and destructive path that the whole world must condemn and find a way to assist waiting. For these reasons, I support this motion. Thank you.
Councillor Adam. Councillor Abdullah, any closing comments?
I just want to say thanks to Councillor Spence, Councillor Bensama and Councillor Adam for making some very valid points and for showing their support for this.
Councillors, we will now go to the vote. All those in favour? Against? I presume the rest are abstaining?
Abstaining.
Those in favour? Councillor Spinks, Councillor Adam, Councillor Summer, Councillor Abdullah. Those abstaining, Councillor Dobson, Councillor Brophy, Councillor James, Councillor Ladson and Councillor Sali. Motion lost. Item 18, councillors, on page 130 of the agenda, urgent business not included on the agenda nor received. And item 19, close of meeting, which I will do right now at 5:04 PM.